there was a party. People celebrated. They're like, our son has made it. He went to Kampala. Now he has come back with a motorcycle.
Coming from the poorest of the poor and then making it to the top. These are the stories that we want to hear, but they are rare, very rare. And even though entrepreneurs naturally have built their companies from the ground up, most of them at least had a good education. Our guest on today's show really started from nothing and co-founded a company that transformed the life of thousands. This exceptional person is Ricky Rapa Thomson, co-founder and COO of Safeboda, the Ugandan Boda Boda riding app.
My name is Ricky Rapa Thomson. I'm co-founder and director of Safeboda. A little bit about myself is I am a Ugandan. I came to Kampala in the year 2007 as a private security guard. A private security guard is really someone who sleeps outside while the rest are sleeping inside. Then in the year late 2010, I joined Boda Boda riding as a professional motorcycle taxi rider with no training, with no certification, just like any other person did. And in the year 2012, I founded the City Tour company. And of course, as I did mention today, I'm working with Safeboda. I co-founded it with my other friends, Max and Alistair.
In this episode, Ricky will take us on the journey through his childhood to where he is now. He will tell us the importance of relationships and how he built those. Also, we will hear about the process of scaling Safeboda. My name is Antonia Lorenz, and this is the Foundelity Africa podcast. Ricky's life started humble. Like most children in Africa, he grew up in a small village.
I come from the northern part of Uganda. The northern part of Uganda is basically like the upper part of the country, where you have most of the tribes being like the Luo-speaking tribes. I went to school. I went to a school called Kachung Primary School. It was a walk that we used to do every morning, a distance of around 3 to 4 kilometers, back and forth every day as we commute from home to school. It was more of a village setting where basically there are no buses, there were no taxis, there were no border borders at the time. And basically, if you are okay, or if you come from a well-to-do family, then you would afford to ride a bicycle.
But his life didn't start fortunate, and he had to overcome some deep setbacks at a young age.
Of course, I was born and raised by my parents, both of them being peasant farmers. I was privileged to also graduate from primary school and went to secondary school. But unfortunately, I stopped in what you might call Form 4, so Senior 4, which is still a lower level. I was still remaining with around 2 years before I could join the university. And basically, what happened is I lost my mom, who was the main sponsor behind my education. Mm-hmm. So when you look at the standard of people who are educated in Uganda, I'm one of the few you could clearly say uneducated. And also my dad died in 2009. So a total orphan. I'm from a family of 9, and myself being the most educated, and now have to take care of the rest of my siblings. Yeah. Basically my sister and my brother. But I am here today.
As Ricky recovered from his losses, he didn't lose motivation. And he was also bothered from what the village life had to offer to him.
So what were your perspectives back then? What did you think your life would look like?
Growing up as any young person, you always have a dream. Some people will always say, I want to be a pilot and all these things. For me, growing up, I really wanted to be a doctor because I've seen people go through difficult moments. I've seen my grandfather get sick and no one is really there to help them. I've seen my mom also get sick. I've seen a lot of relatives lose their lives. And I thought that the only way I could be of use was basically to become a doctor so that I can help treat people and help save lives. But also it was very challenging growing up in the village where there are literally no success stories. But there's a very strong belief, and this is a story that everyone has said, that when you go to town, which was actually the city, Kampala, life will never be the same again. So that was a very interesting kind of twist, because the life in the village was very simple. Either you drop out of school when you're tired of school, then immediately when you drop out of school, you actually marry. Then they give you a small piece of land and you build your grass-thatched house, and you start the day-to-day activity, which will be farming.
So, village life is pretty straightforward. Get married, get some land, and do farming. But then there was this mysterious and exciting thing called the city, where all your dreams are supposed to come true. And that definitely sounded more intriguing to Ricky.
But there was one thing. I had a very important dream that I really wanted to be of value to the society, become a doctor. So my dream has always been like, I need to get myself as well to Kampala so that I can also make it and also be successful.
So where did your motivation even come from? Because you could have also stayed in the village.
So this is my issues became very, very complicated after losing my mom. And the question of motivation is, at that point, my father kept telling me, Ricky, you know what? Now that your mom has died, you need to come back home and then marry and be able to take care of your siblings. And for me, I did not believe in that approach, because I had seen other people who left home a few years ago and their life was not the same again.
And there was also a very practical thing that just wasn't working for him.
In the first place, by the way, to be very honest, I was not a fan of digging, because this was not machinery digging. It was really like you have to carry a hand hoe, go to the garden and cut line by line, like really become the machine. So I never really enjoyed that. So I envisioned my life being a villager, being a peasant farmer wasn't the best thing for me.
Yeah.
So basically, and the motivation was really like I wanted to be someone of value, and I needed to create impact in the society. And I realized that if I go back home and stay home and get married and right now start doing peasant farming, I will not be able to even support my brothers, my siblings. So the quest to be able to know more, to learn, to be a better person and share it with other people who I felt were of value was really like the reason I didn't settle in the village to become a peasant farmer.
Now, Ricky left the village to conquer the city, full of hope and motivation to build a better life and to bring some of it home to his family and village. But even in the city, going there alone from the village, of course he had to start from the bottom.
Then when you moved to Kampala, what were like the first months like? Was it like the dream you imagined, or like what did you feel like?
So when I arrived in Kampala, of course, it was a very simple life. As a security guard, we had a free accommodation. A free accommodation, I meant like a tent in the compound where we would come back from work, and then you have a rest under the tent during the day, and then in the evening you carry the gun and go for work again and again. So at that point, it was a very simple life. And for me, I had hope. Knowing that I have really joined, it was a big thing. And possibly from being a normal guard to possibly being a supervisor, and growing maybe to becoming operation manager, I knew that I would actually be able to grow through the ranks.
To me, that sounds very tough. So I was wondering what kept him going.
Because I had given up, I didn't want to go back empty-handed. I kept on going, but it was a very rough moment for me, and of course, going angry, not having enough to eat, and not even having enough money to save, not even having enough money to buy clothes, but then having a bit of shelter and making other friends was really like the way to go. But I couldn't even return back because I'd left home and said I really want to grow. And I want to be a better person, and I want to find opportunities in Kampala as well.
What would you tell people who are in this kind of a situation right now?
I would really want to say that one is do not lose hope in life, and life is about association. And association, what I mean here is, who do you speak to, who do you relate with, and how do you relate with people? That's very, very critical. Me becoming who I am today is not because I am super blessed or because I am very smart, but because of the quality of people that I related with. And once you relate with good people, people have good interest, people who are developmental, people who have what you want, you'll definitely not go wrong. So I would really say, do not lose hope and associate with the right people, and then plan and invest in the right things for your future. That will always pay.
Having good-willed, smart and supportive people around seems like a theme for Ricky. Even though he came to Kampala all by himself, he always attracted the right people. Ricky understood that, after all, nobody can do it alone. The following story on how he managed to buy his own first Boda Boda is an outstanding example for how the right friends got him to reach new heights.
When I was working as an askari at Akamwisi Hostel, I was being paid a salary of 120,000, around $30. But I had a very good friend who was living in the hostel. His name is called Isaac Musoke. He was a Ugandan who had lived in Denmark for the last 17 years. And at that time, so he told me, we became very good friends. And he asked me, Ricky, what are your plans for life? What do you want to do? How do you plan to grow from being a security guard, maybe to a better person? And I told him at that point, I wanted to open what we call video library. Video library meant I would be selling CDs. I would be selling CDs, putting music, sell it for you, selling movies. That was like the kind of business I was planning for at the time. And my biggest problem was a computer. I needed a laptop computer. To cut the story short, Isaac Musoke decided to offer me his laptop. 2 weeks after that, another person, another student who was in the hostel came and saw my laptop, and he said he wants to buy it. And I asked how much. This guy offered me $400. He was a Liberian who was living in the same hostel. And I got the $400 at that time, changed it to Ugandan shillings. It came out to around 980,000, and topped up like 150,000. And I was able to buy my first motorcycle in life. And that is how I graduated from being an askari to now joining a border riding with my own motorcycle.
The relationship he built with Isaac at the hostel ended up in giving him a great opportunity. Also, you have to invest in the right things and see opportunities. At that time, that was buying his own motorcycle, and this would bring the beginning of a whole new world for him. The influence of this purchase wasn't clear back then. However, for his family and village, that was a big thing already.
I come from one of the poorest families in Uganda. So basically, peasant farmers that they just go and dig, and then we get stuff from the garden and eat. So I came from very, very poor family. And at that point, no one in my family had a motorcycle. So basically, I became a very big inspiration to many people. And they kept asking themselves, how is this possible? When I went back with the motorcycle, there was a party. People celebrated. They're like, our son has made it. He went to Kampala. Now he has come back with the motorcycle. So now everyone was really like, now your son has to go to Kampala. Why? Because you can make it. Your son will make it when you send him to Kampala. So really, like, it was a big transition, not only for me, but for the village that I come from, and for the family that I come from. Of course, after today, I don't want to say I am very, very okay. But the thing is, I stand out to become one of the biggest inspirations for my people. And I think that's something very, very critical.
How did that make you feel?
It makes me feel very humble. I feel like, it takes, it humbles me, but it also gives me a lot of hope. and it puts me in a situation where I really have to make sure I don't underestimate the power of change, because anything can actually happen, and people will never remain the same when they put their energy towards the right things. And it humbles me. It makes me very humble, I would say, because coming from a very, very poor family with literally no education, to getting to the level that I am in is really it's more spiritual than it is economical, I would say.
Yeah. So was that also the thing that kept you going then?
I so much look at people, and I so much try as much as I can to make sure I do all it takes to make lives of other people also better, given that I came from where they are in. So basically, the willingness to actually, or the interest in making sure that other people's lives are also better, is what keeps me going. Because if it was about my life, then I should be good.
Yeah.
Next, how Safeboda came to life. Ricky was passionate about Boda Boda riding, and he enjoyed his new life. Until a very bad incident happened that made him realize that there is a big problem. A good friend and colleague died in an accident. I myself have used bodas to get around the city of Kampala every day. On normal bodas, passengers don't get a helmet. Even drivers are often not wearing one. Drivers don't respect the traffic rules and they drive too fast. It is by far the easiest way to get around, but many people don't use them because the risk of injury is just too high.
As I was doing my Boda Boda riding, of course, I lost a very good friend in a border-related accident. And at that point, as I said, I decided to become an advocate of road safety. And an advocate of road safety meant that I was carrying a second helmet, telling people that it's important to wear a helmet, it's important to observe safety rules and stuff like that. But at that point, my friends that I was working with at the stage looked at me as if as if I didn't know what I was doing. Most times they said he has a malala. So a malala means having that pride, thinking that you know when you don't know. So they kept on saying, this one has just come from the village. He thinks he knows Kampala. He thinks he's going to make it and stuff like that. So of course, a lot of that was said, but I kept on insisting on what was right.
Ricky had a deep and honest connection to this issue, and nothing kept him from making a change within the space he was able to. As you might say, one person doesn't change much, but he did inspire people and attracted some who would play an important role in his life and in solving this issue.
Because of continuously doing the right thing and telling customers about helmet wearing, a lot of customers picked very good interest in what I was doing. And many people started recommending me to their networks. And that's how I happened to meet Max, who is originally from Belgium, who picked a lot of interest and said, Ricky, we need to turn this into a business and we can work on this idea together. So we agreed together that we're going to build a community of border borders at that time. Basically, well-trained border borders, professionally borders who can be heavily identified, borders who can be trusted, because there was that big gap in the community. And we started this together with Max, and Alistair joined us, and we moved. And we are able to build what is now known as Safeboda together as a team.
So I imagine the transformation from a Boda driver to the founder of a company might be quite turbulent. So I really wanted to know how he dealt with that and how he felt about his life back then.
I think I would want to say that for the first 6 months, it was really something very, very new. But it was some of the things that I knew, and it wasn't as technical as it should sound. Basically, because dealing with the border drivers, training them, it was quite simple. And the team was really, because you are growing something from the scratch, and you're doing something that you love, and you have frustrated yourself. Because for me, when we started Safeboda, of course, it was me, it was Max, it was Alistair, and I had like the right people around me. the drivers that we started with were very loving. They cared so much about the idea. They were proactive. They were contributing. They were helping in all aspects. So just by having the right people around me and having people who are willing to also learn, people who are willing to contribute, people who want to see this succeed, made it a fairly smooth ride.
So it was again the people around him that made it possible for Ricky to grow. He was still doing what he knew, training and connecting to riders that were just like him. And it was that local knowledge that helped Safeboda take off. But of course, it wasn't always easy.
I would want to say, of course, it also required a lot of contribution from my side, a lot of adjustment from my side, a lot of self-learning, and of course, as a person, I had to consult and get some people to help me, and I had to learn from the scratch. It basically learn how to write emails, learn how to do this, learn how to put PowerPoint, learn how to use Excel, learn how to interpret data, learn how to communicate with people, learn how to manage people, and slowly by slowly, I was able to grow and become what I am today. Of course, even I had to learn how to present issues, how to even talk to media, how to talk to you, Antonia.
Yeah.
So, so it wasn't that simple, but because I was interested in every aspect in what I was doing, it never became that technical, you know. But if you look at it today, of course, it's been so many years. We started this in 2014. This is 2020, and you remember that every day was really like a learning day. All the weekdays we have to learn about the business. You have to be aware of what's going on. You have to make the necessary adjustment. Of course, if you put that as well into perspective, it's never simple, but it's achievable.
Safeboda was getting successful because of the founding team. Ricky, Alex, and Alistair. They combined local knowledge with international experiences and networks. Ricky wouldn't have gotten the idea to launch an app. Alex and Alistair wouldn't have been able to connect and train the riders and to understand their needs as Ricky did it. But how did Ricky even attract those two guys? And how do you manage such a diverse team?
So how did I attract them? I think they got interested in what I was doing, and also I think Max was introduced to me by a friend who knew me as a border rider and said, you need to meet this guy. He's a great border guy. He has very good interest. He has good ambitions. He wants to build something, and you could actually join him and be able to do stuff together. So because of that recommendation, it created a bit of trust. Yeah. When he met me, we had very good interaction. I think the chemistry was on point. Everyone appreciated each other, and just meeting like today and say we're going to start working on this tomorrow. We've been there and we've been working together from that time up to today.
So, how exactly did they become such a strong team?
Of course, there's been ups and downs. But because you believe in each other and you know that you need each other, because I actually respected the fact that they are also coming from different backgrounds. Like Max is an economist, Alice is also an economist. And these are people who have masters, and I don't have a certificate, but I was an expert in the border industry. I had a very comprehensive understanding of what the border industry looked like, what was the best, and that became my area of focus. And I also asked them, help with this, I help with this. So we clear roles and responsibilities, but then everyone was supportive to each other. Even when I want to do something, I had to involve them. And over time now, they have become also experts of the border industry. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have a difficult moment at a certain point. It's definitely going to happen. You're going to maybe have a bit of friction here and there, but you need to know that no matter what happens, we need each other. And for this initiative to be successful, we need each other. So of course, those situations have always been there, but because we have built trust and good relations, and we have now grown to make sure that even those situations that were there earlier on does not repeat itself, because we are now matured and we know how best to do things, how best to give feedback, how best to advise, how best to have your input appreciated. So we become brothers, actually, at a certain point.
there is another thing that is super important to make the company succeed.
But also, most importantly, when now the three of us knew we knew what we knew, and we knew that we're a good team, then we had to get better people as well, like the best people to actually join us. From the engineers, to the operation team, to like the marketing team. We made sure we get like the best people, and also that has helped us steer the organization towards the right direction.
Next, we're talking about scale. Safeboda is one of the fewer African startups that have scaled to both different countries and also to different sectors. So how did all of that happen?
A little bit of an insight of how we moved was that in the year 2000, around June 2014 is when the idea was born, with me and Max, and later on Alistair also joined. And then by the end of 2014, around December, we already had around 20 drivers, which were like network of my very good friends. And then by the end of 2015, we were able to grow to around 150 drivers. By the end of 2016, we were able to hit 1,000, 1,300. By the end of 2017, we were able to hit 3,000. And 2018, we were able to grow up to 8,000. And then now, as I speak today, we have a community of over 18,000 drivers, and we have expanded to Nairobi, Kenya, and to Ibadan in West Africa, Nigeria.
I personally used the app all the time, every day. Yeah, I mean, you already told me you scaled in terms of riders, you scaled in terms of countries, then in terms of sectors, just so you also have delivery, food, airtime. So what, in that scaling process, what were the biggest challenges, and how did you even decide that, like, what are you doing next?
How did we decide what we are doing next? So basically, all the scaling processes have always been demand driven. But one of the issues that will always, I think many people are still going to face, is adaptation of these different products that we build. And that comes to like the perception and the mindset of the customers, and building trust with the customers that actually does not come like in one go. When you're bringing change into an industry, it's always very difficult. But after we got the first one right, which is like rides, people started asking us for like different things. They said, what about if I can do this in my app? And what we did them as a team is now we sent a team to do a bit of research. We talked to a number of our customers to really understand exactly what they wanted. And that's how now we came up with a different kind of services. You know, that from ride, you can now do delivery, you can now do airtime, and all these kind of things. And now the rest are actually demand driven, because customers are asking for them.
But it's not only customers who are important. There are also other stakeholders that need to be considered for Safeboda's work.
And what we say today is Safeboda is doing all it takes to make lives of our customers better, but also to make lives of our drivers better. And you know, like for the customers now, we have food, groceries, all this kind, but also for our drivers, we now have products or services like loans. They can now have access bikes, they can now access fuel at a lower rate with like Shell, and they can actually access insurance for themselves, for their bikes. They can access so many other products that they ask for, and we customize and build it for them. But some of it we've provided ourselves, but most of it we provide it in partnership with other organizations who have very special interest in the border industry.
And lastly, what is Ricky's final advice for entrepreneurs in Africa?
Africa is blessed with what other people call problems, but what us as entrepreneurs should actually, or we call it, challenges. It's purely a green land of opportunities. And I think what we now know is that there are a lot of challenges in Africa from different sectors. If you talk about agriculture, if you talk about transport, if we talk about technology, every sector has got issues that has not yet been worked on. And I think as young people in Africa, we need to capitalize on those challenges and be able to build and be able to solve problems that are facing the communities. But also as entrepreneurs, we use those opportunities to build businesses that will last for decades. And I think it's time now that we have to build products for ourselves, by ourselves, with our own support as well. Because I know we have all it takes to be able to do some of these things. I really want to say that no one knows our problem more than we know our problem. And I also want to say that no one knows the solution to our problem more than we do. Because technically, when you know what the problem is, then you know what the solution is, and you're just trying to ignore it. So it's time to act now. It's time for you to create the world that we want to see. Thank you, and God bless you.
That's it for this episode of the Foundality Africa podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you liked this episode, subscribe and don't miss out when we upload new ones. Please also share and leave a review if you want others to know about Foundality. If you want to know more about us, or if you want to leave us a message, visit foundality.com. Also, if you know an outstanding African entrepreneur who you think could be a great guest, please let us know. We do post small snippets, learnings, and inspirations from the podcast on social media. You can find us under the name Foundality. Episodes will be uploaded weekly. See you then.
During the time I was writing Boda Boda, I actually had a friend from Germany called Antonia that I was writing in Kampala. So yeah,
really,
yeah,
that's funny.
but that's not you, I think.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I still know the person. Yeah, but she's also from Germany, so that's like the unique kind of thing. So the next time you meet another Ricky from Uganda, we might tend to be like, we are all from Uganda, but we are different people.